All right, hello everyone. So I don't know if you guys caught my talk before where I talked about collecting performance metrics on OpenStack. Today I'm going to talk about taking event data and getting into wherever you put your metrics, and then hopefully you could correlate it with whatever metrics you're collecting. I don't really know how I should move to the next slide though, so.
This slide is really good.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. All right. All right, so most of you guys probably know that OpenStack uses RabbitMQ as the message queue by default. It could also do Cupid or ZeroMQ, but the important thing to know is that once you enable this notifications.info exchange, you could collect a lot more information about what's going on in Nova under the hood. Because it does use this message bus for internal communication. So Nova emits a ton of different events. I think there's over 80 documented. There might be others that are undocumented, given the nature of OpenStack documentation. But here are just a few of them. There's, you get a notification on when you attach a volume, when you start an instance, when you delete it, when you destroy it, all this other stuff. So the full list is on that link right there. So what can events tell you? Why should you even worry about them in the first place? So because sometimes, this is just one example, OpenStack does have noisy neighbor problem. In this chart over here, there's a bunch of metrics that controller is actually one of my main nodes, and I spawned a guest on that same controller, and as you can see, all these different spikes happening at around 5 o'clock. Well, what the heck happened there? We have no idea, but we see some drop in my guest 0 CPU for no reason. But events could tell you why that happened. A little bit more about events before we get into actually showing them. Messages are JSON encoded. They have a lot of data encoded in them. They tell you the event type. They tell you where it's happening. They tell you the availability zone, lots of different things. Here's a bit of a close-up on that for a little bit of view. And there are a lot of message queues that RabbitMQ supports or is running at the same time. So I'm only going to talk about collecting messages on notifications.info, which is that top one right there. I haven't even considered listening in on other message queues and trying to see what kind of information you could glean from those. But once you get into listening in on these events, really the options are limitless. So eavesdropping on RabbitMQ, before you do anything, you have to modify your Nova config. You have to basically just copy and paste this kind of stuff right here, and then restart all your Nova services, and you'll start having events being collected in that notifications.info, and then you could tap right into that through a client or whatever. So the listener, I actually have a really rudimentary listener that's on GitHub in a gist, and it only has 2 dependencies, the Kombu messaging library from Celery, and that's used to connect to RabbitMQ and retrieve the messages. If you use Datadog and you want to emit those metrics, the events to that, then you could install the Datadog package too. You don't have to. If you're not using Datadog, you could use your own listener, or you can modify the listener to just send it to your own backend. So here's the code. It's actually about 20 lines. That keyprint dependency is not in the code anymore. It was an artifact from a previous version, but I didn't redo the screenshot. The script takes your AMQP credentials over as an environment variable and then enters a loop where it continuously just tries to drain events from that notifications.info. And this is just a proof of concept just to show you how to do it, and you can pretty much extend it to your own use. You could even, like I said, you don't have to listen in on notifications.info. You could listen in on other queues. There's a bunch of messages being passed around, and not only by Nova. Cinder uses message passing also. There's a whole bunch in a previous slide. Basically, RabbitMQ does form the message passing backbone for most OpenStack services. So here's how you run it. It's pretty easy. Just drag this one-liner into your into your shell and just execute it. That ampersand will run as a background service, and it should be listening away. And what do you get? So you get, if you're using Datadog, you get events in your event stream. So here we could see when the compute instance was deleted, when it was started. There's a lot more to it than that. Like I showed you, there's about 80-some events. This is just a quick highlight of it. But the important part is, oh man, I didn't use the same graph. But going back to that original time series that we showed before, that spike was actually caused by creating many instances within like 3 seconds, spawning up like 20-some instances, and it caused blocking on disk I/O, and that affected other VMs by other tenants on the same system. So even though the machine wasn't doing anything itself, the VM wasn't running anything intensive at all, it was feeling the effects of other users spawning instances on the same hypervisor. And you could notify on events, which is really useful. Datadog lets you notify on any event that is sent to Datadog. And that's pretty much it. So the code is available at that dtdg.co/novalisten. The changes to the configuration file are on that dtg/nova changes. And the Nova list was, like the list of Nova events was, I think it's the same link, but Nova-events. So, and I think that's about it. Thank you.